All righty. So, good night to everyone. I am Miss Donnie Mears, and I will be teaching you all Unit 2 Management of Business for this academic year. I am a student at the University of the West Indies, Cayfield campus, and I am studying um, management with a concentration in marketing. So I just want to welcome you, officially welcome you guys to our first class, um, and let's move forward. So I just want to go through some things that you should take note of. My classes are Tuesday 7 to 8 p.m. and that is for Unit 2 Management of Business. My office hours, this is where you can come and ask me questions or explain something that you may not have understood throughout the presentations. You can come and ask me these on Sundays from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. I will be in, I will post in the chat room which particular topic I am teaching on the day. I will be teaching a maximum of 25 students, and that's first come, first serve. But you can also access the recordings on YouTube. I will be going in the order of the syllabus for the most part, and that is unless you all request a particular topic to talk. So I would suggest returning to the class weekly if you can. If you can. I just want to go through some class rules with you guys. I just want you to be respectful at all times. I would like to participate in discussions because business is a lot of reading. And so sometimes to understand what you have read, it is best to discuss. It's best to share your points and ask your questions and hear different inputs so you can learn. Um, Turn on your mic when you want to add to the discussion. And this is especially when using Discord here because I cannot see if you have your hand raised or if you ask a question or what's not. So just turn on your mic when you want to add to the discussion and mute your mic if you're not contributing to the class and when someone else is speaking. And the chat box or the chat rooms are only reserved for asking questions and typing information related to what is going on in class, and that goes back with being respectful. We do not want to see any foul language. We do not want to see any bullying, none of that in these chat rooms, and that can lead to being banned from class and being banned from the school. So just be respectful at all times. So we're gonna get into some key terms and important terms that often are asked by CSE. CSE often asks us what to do, not what to do. CSE often asks us to do these things when they ask us a question. So they ask us to outline, identify, differentiate, describe, and evaluate. So we're just going to go through the definitions of these terms quickly. So we have here that an outline is basically a summary of all the available information about a topic in a logical order and should explain the relationship between each point. The outline should just be main points and you do not have to give details. And so the answer for this question must be short. They don't want you to go on and on and on and on. They just want the main points and that's it. So if I asked you to outline 4 challenges or 4 problems associated with online school, what would you tell me? Just outline them. You may speak, you may add.
I would say one problem would be distractions at home, um, screen
Yes.
time in terms of your eyes hurting you, um, balancing home, the separation of home and school, mind, and just being stationary all day.
Okay, those are very good examples of outlining. You did not give too much detail. It was straight to the point. So that's basically what outlining is. I have here, I came up with 3 points as well. I have that it is difficult to focus in online school. It is less interactive and engaging, and technical problems often take away from class time. Those are my 3 examples of outlining problems associated with online school. The next term we have is identifying, and you're basically pointing out and describing the main ideas in a short and coherent way. So if I asked you or asked you to identify 3 features of a smartphone, what would you say?
I could call, I could text,
Yeah.
um, and I can go on social on the internet.
Yes, but you just didn't really describe them. You just, I guess, stated, you just outlined, you did not describe the main ideas in a
Okay,
yeah.
so I on a phone I can call and text by clicking a button, and I can
Yeah.
communicate with other people all over the world. I could keep track of my daily routine on a calendar. I could play games on it. I could do online classes on it. Um, I can watch videos on YouTube or on other other platforms. I can prepare reports and all sorts of things.
Yes. So you just have to describe the main ideas a bit a bit more, the main points. So for example, I have here, it is small and compact. Oh, it is small and compact, and it is the size of my hand. Additionally, we can say that a smartphone has the screen where you press particular characters on the screen to use it. And then lastly, we can say to identify three features of a smartphone. Lastly, smartphones are durable as they can last up to 5 years. Okay, you understand?
Teachers, okay, I understand.
Okay, great. So we're going on to differentiate. And this is basically you're showing the difference between two ideas, two concepts, two things. And that statement just speaks for itself. So if I ask you, or if I said to differentiate between a chef and a doctor, briefly differentiate between a chef and a doctor, what would you say?
A doctor cuts people open.
Okay, and you have to mention the other item or the other thing they're asking you to differentiate. You have to mention both of them.
So a chef is a person who cooks food as a profession, while
Yeah.
a doctor is a person who takes care of people as a profession.
Okay, that's
Is
very
that
good.
better?
Yes, please. Is very much better. Simple to the point. You differentiate between the two. All right. The next term is to describe. And this is basically outlining and giving details about the characteristics of what they're asking you for. So if I said to describe me, or if it was to describe myself, I would have just want to say about, I have hair and I have forehead and I have eyes and I have lips. No, I would have to say about I have long braids or long twists on my hair and they're quite fuzzy and brown. I will have to go into detail about like yeah, say just that it's fuzzy, it's brown, it's long, it's twisted. I would say that, but you can just kind of say I have a forehead. You have to say that she has a large forehead with pimples or scars or shiny. You have to give details. If I ask to describe um uh this plant, you would say that it is tall, it is green, it has a lighter green or lighter green veins, it is fake, and and yes, you just have to give details, outline and give details about the characteristics of what they're asking you for. Then the next term is to evaluate, and they're basically asking you to form a judgment of the matter at hand and giving reasons why. So they want you to evaluate using the pros and cons basically. So if you walked into a supermarket and the supermarket is nicely laid out, it has air conditioned, is aesthetically pleasing. The layout is nice. They have a wide variety of goods or items, and you're going there. You're like, oh, this is nice, and you pick up something from the shelf, and you approach the cashier. You're just like, wait, excuse me, can you tell me the price of this? And she decides to carry you on bad. She started to curse you, and she tell you, well, look, the price there on the shelf or you're gonna ask me, and she used all the wrong languages and wrong language, sorry, and all that. She's very unmannerly and rude. When you come out of the store and somebody asks you to evaluate that particular store, you're gonna say, well, the store, the layout, it is aesthetically pleasing, you know, it smells nice, it feels nice. However, they have to work on the customer service that can really tarnish the reputation of the business. So that's how you evaluate. You just, state the form a judgment based on the pros and cons of the thing that they are asking you to evaluate. The last term is explaining, and they're asking you to clarify a topic. So when you are doing this, when they ask you to explain, you have to imagine that you're explaining to somebody that does not know anything about this topic or concept or idea. You have to bear that in mind, and you must make sure that you give as much detail as possible and use any jargon and key terms when you're explaining. So think about the words associated with the particular topic that or concept that you are explaining, and make sure that you put those in your answer. All right, so we're getting into the first topic on the syllabus, and this is the nature of production. And as we go on, we will learn more. So I just want to know if you guys know or if you remember from fourth or fifth form what production is. Or could you give me a definition from the top of your head?
Um, Production, like, how do I describe it? Production is like how a product was produced. I know that's terrible, but how a product was produced in like layman terms.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. That's that's basically what it is. Production is basically any activity that a firm undertakes that add value to the factors of production by converting them into a product. So, for example, if I, as you will see here, um, shortly, if I decided to cut some the tree trunks off the tree, and I decided to sell that for, let's say, one of those for like $300 to a company. When the company, you know, fixes it up and creates furniture or chairs or whatever the case may be, or desks, that has added the value to the wood that I had initially cut from the tree, because you're not going to probably sell the 5 chairs that you make from the wood for the same $300. It would be more expensive because of the throughput. So we're talking about the production process, and this basically outlines the steps involved in converting input into output. So we have here our input, and this is our raw materials. Our throughput is basically the process of converting them into the finished goods, and the output is the actual finished good that you have, that the company or the firm has um, created or produced. So we're moving on smartly, and this is just some formal definitions. The input, these come from the factors of production land. And these are the raw materials and the raw components of production which the firm will use to convert a finished product. So it includes things such as bauxite and agricultural produce, and as I said, tree barks. Then we have the throughput, and this is the process that the materials or components go through before they are converted to finished products, and can vary based on the industry. So this process may include activities such as crushing, melting, welding, cooking, and baking, because you're at this stage you're making whatever it is that you are um, making. And the output is the final product. So these are known as the finished goods that have been generated from production, because they represent the outcome of the conversion of the outputs. So basically, they are the finished products or the final product from the throughput. They include things such as bread, furniture, plantain chips, and even a snack box from Chefette. So that's the finished product. I just want us to note, however, that the finished good from one industry can be used as an input in another industry. So, for example, um, the raw materials. So, let's say you cooking, for example, you extract some or you harvest some sweet potatoes or some English potatoes from your garden bed or whatever the case may be, and you decide to sell it to that's technically your finished good because you would have watered and fertilized the ground and stuff like that. So that's your finished good. And when you decide to sell that to a restaurant, that will be their input because they will probably use that to create mashed potatoes or some chips or grilled potatoes or whatever. It can be the input into another industry. So I just want you guys to bear that in mind. Moving on, and I am sure, or I presume that you guys know the factors of production. You would have done this in fourth and fifth form: land, labor, capital, and enterprise. And basically, these are combined for the business to use to make profit. Sorry, and all of them are used or they are needed in the production process because the land or the land is the basically the raw materials and the gifts of nature that we use in the production process, the labor or people that we hire to make these things. Capital, this is like machinery and equipment, and enterprise is the knowledge of the entrepreneur who owns the business, who uses these other three factors of production here to make profit. So we need to know that firms decide on what to produce based on what is demanded, and that is through market research, or they produce what they can and then they find the market for a product. So when you're starting a business, is usually people usually advise you and they usually say, make sure that you're making something or producing something that people actually need or people actually want, so that you just wouldn't waste money because you produce this thing and nobody wants it. There's no need for it in the market. So it's good to do market research, or they say produce what the business can and then find a market for the product. So you may, for example, like photography, and you like a particular type of photography, you don't really know the needs of the market for photography, but you know that you like taking pictures of models. So then you will cater towards the models in the modeling industry or the whole target or the whole population. Yeah. So we're moving on smartly and we're going on to production methods. And there are four types of ways that production occurs. We have the job production, batch production, flow production, and cellular production. So I just want to draw this example here. Let's say that there's a business called Tailored, and they produce customized designer clothing. So it's not these are not things that you could go anywhere and find. There's things that wedding dress or custom made jacket or hat, and they're designer. And when you're ordering, you have to make sure that you state what exactly it is that you would like. This, for example, was fall under job production, and it is basically when a single product is produced to meet individual specifications. It's usually a one-time production built to the buyer's design. The product is heterogeneous, meaning that there aren't many, or if there are any at all, products like these because they're usually customized. And it usually involves a single worker or a group of workers. So you will see this coming from like a seamstress who specializes in making wedding dresses, or a construction firm where they are a construction company and they build customized bridges or boats. And it's usually a group of workers, as you can see here with the construction team, and or it is a single person, like a seamstress. So we're going to go through the characteristics of job production. The focus is on the individual customer and not the entire market. So you're not just going to go there and try to make wedding dresses for everybody because individual people want individual things. The product is usually expensive. And could you tell me why the product would be expensive? Why you think it would be expensive? Hi. Okay. Well, it would be expensive because the next points, the other points that are here. The labor force is usually versatile and highly skilled, so they need to get paid a lot because they know what they're doing and they have many different skills, or they are very knowledgeable in what they're doing. So it's not that the seamstress could only produce wedding dresses. She could probably produce, you know, hats or curtains or tablecloths or something. But whatever the case may be, they're highly skilled and they're usually very versatile. The machinery and equipment are that's what the equipment they are usually flexible, so they can be used for different jobs. So that's the whole thing about the sewing machine. You can sew almost about anything on your sewing machine. We also know that only one product is made at a time. So we do not start another product until this one is finished. And production isn't usually done on a large scale. Um, it's not usually done on a large scale. It's like if you go to your neighborhood's a seamstress, she will make you a dress. Or the construction company, um, they're not going to be producing like 4 or 5 bridges, or the same group of people wouldn't be producing 4 or 5 bridges at the same time. So they work on one, and when that is finished, we'll move on to the next one. Okay, so we're gonna look at some of the advantages. Can you think of advantages of job production? Hello? Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can now hear you.
Oh, I was talking. I was saying ideas.
Yes, you have a lot of room to be versatile. Um, any others?
I could only think of the cons in my head.
Oh,
Um, because like the cons would be like, you know, it's not as fast as a machine, and stuff like that. So I'm trying to think of besides like yes, the creativity, the idea. Um, I guess if errors are made because of the human mind, you'll be able to rather than machine because the machine is
yeah,
just programmed. Um,
definitely.
in terms of like because it's designer clothing and it's like really supposed to be this big up creative thing. I think that it's better to have actual people because it's better to have actual people doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it.
I get what you're saying. I would also say that I think you're able to connect with your consumers or customers more. You're like it's like quite personal rather than you just making these items in a factory, and there's no like connection to the consumer slash customer of the product. So we'll see what the advantages say. Is the product is tailored to the needs of the consumer, sorry. So this is basically they're getting the product that they want and is customized to suit them. It is easier to find and isolate any problems that may arise. So as you were correctly saying, when job production is done, or if somebody produces an item, or if a company uses job production, if there are any problems, they can easily pinpoint them, because it's not a case where you're just using machines and you have to probably, I don't know how you would find um the error using machines. You probably have to, like, I don't know, but with the person with,
Program it.
yeah, but with the person who is sewing the dress, they can, if you, for example, if your zip was too tight, or it wasn't coming up properly, they can, like, oh yeah, I forgot to put in whatever you put in when you're sewing, and you can easily pinpoint the problem and improve on it the next time that you're making a dress. The workforce, sorry, is greatly involved with the product, which leads to job satisfaction. So I assume and I presume that once you're doing something in job production, it's something that you are, yes, highly skilled in, but you probably like it a lot. And because of that, and because you're involved with the product, you will be satisfied. You'll be satisfied with your job. And the product is usually of, not supposed to be of, very high quality. So can you think of the disadvantages? You were telling me about the cons that you would have.
Yeah, definitely machine would do any clothes than a regular human being with hands, even with the sewing machine.
Yeah.
If it was just up to one big machine, I think some companies have those machines where they will make almost the entire thing for you, and the most the employee has to do is just put it on, put the material on.
Yeah.
Mm, con is it's more money in the long term to pay people than to maintain a machine, for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Yeah.
So not on the employee part, but on the business itself, is you in the long term, it's less money, it's more profitable to have a machine rather than employees, because with employees comes health benefits. Sometimes it comes with maternity leave, sick leave, um, insurance, pensions. You don't gotta do none of that with a machine.
Yeah.
So and vacation leave, all that.
Yes.
I think that it's more profitable in the long run for the CEO or the business to have a machine doing everything, or majority of it.
Yes.
What's another con? What's another con? I can't think of any others. I can only think of those two.
Okay, that's no problem. So, as you rightfully said, you're gonna have very high per unit costs, because to make one dress or to construct one bridge, you're gonna have to pay your employees a lot of money, especially because it's customized. And then, like, the is that you're only producing one thing, so it's not like you're producing like multiple dresses, multiple of this particular dress using this equipment. You're just producing one. So your per unit cost will be high, extremely high. And it requires a very high and flexible labor force. So you just can't go and hire everybody. You have to be very particular. Um, there's going to be high spending on machinery and equipment, because, as mentioned earlier, the machinery and equipment must be flexible. They must be versatile, because um, many of the things that many of the products of that are produced in the job production method are customized, and the products are very expensive as a result of the high costs of production. So those are the disadvantages. So we're moving on to batch production. And this allows a group of products to undergo a production process at the same time. So the work can be organized in a number of steps. Each batch of products are going through each step at the same time before moving on to the next. And for the most part, the same equipment is used to produce quantities of a product to meet a specific demand. The production process stops when each batch is completed. A new batch usually of a different product is then produced using the same generous equipment and workforce. So I just have this example here. Let's say that this is a food business and they produce donuts, and they're regular donuts, they have chocolate donuts and cheesecake donuts. So when you're reproducing in batches simply because you have three different types. They're the same product, but there are three different types. So you will not um, produce the chocolate donuts with the regular donuts because you don't want to get them mixed up. So you're probably going to deep fry these first, and deep fry this batch first, the regular batch, then deep fry the chocolate batch, and then deep fry the cheesecake batch. And then when you're doing the frosting, you may have to do batch production again, where put particular frosting at the top. So you may have some vanilla, and you section them off into the vanilla's batch, or regular vanilla, and then you have strawberry, not strawberry, yeah, regular strawberry, and then you have chocolate, vanilla, chocolate or double chocolate, and then you have cheesecake, vanilla cheesecake. So it's like you're producing the same thing, but the products are slightly different. And because of that, you have to do it in batches. And you can see this with soft drinks as well. For example, Fusi, they may produce the pineapple, the first batch will be the pineapple flavor, the second batch will be the grapefruit, and the third batch would be what's another fruity flavor? Um,
Ginger ale,
yeah, and it's ginger ale. So they do it in batches. Do you understand?
basically saying that businesses have to do, like, especially in the food industry,
Yeah,
that you have to do different flavors, basically of basically the same thing, but there's a different flavor.
right.
So, or in the case, like, or in the case of a, well, or I guess in the case in a clothing line, like clothing lines and designer lines have collections and like stuff like that. Will that count too? Like a clothing line having a collection. Like if Gucci came up with their, I don't know,
Yeah, yeah.
astrology collection.
So if
Okay.
they have bikes, for example, bikes, they may have different style bikes. So the first batch maybe bikes, the second batch could be the shoulder bikes, like, or the next set could be what's called those um haversacks. But usually there's like the same product, but it's just that there's slight variations to them. Do you understand? Very slight variations. It's not like a whole different
Would ice cream be it? Would ice cream count too?
ice cream.
Because you got vanilla ice cream, chocolate ice
Yeah,
cream,
so
but they all
yeah,
still ice cream.
yes, yeah, because you would have um the first batch you would the, uh, the first batch would be vanilla, the second batch would be chocolate, and the third batch would be um what's called that? The Oreo one. I can't remember what you call that one.
Cookies and
Cookies and
cream.
cream, right? Cookies and cream.
All right. So what about phones? Like if Samsung came out with a new Galaxy, would that count, or that's completely different?
That would because those would be like mass produced. They could do them in batches, but because they're mass produced, it's probably going to fall under the section of mass production. But yes, the producing in batches may still be there because of the different. As you said, it's a phone, but the phone the phones are slightly different. Same basic things, but a different variation, a different features or whatever the case may be. So yeah. So this method is usually found in food, medicine, pharmaceutical industries. And for the pharmaceutical industries, they usually carry a batch number so that it's easy to trace any problems that arise with any particular batch of products. So with the donuts, if Um, this is batch number one, batch number two, and batch number three. And with batch number one, you hear that them too hard, the donuts too hard, the people can't get them chew. You could go back to and see, oh, what happened with batch number one to pinpoint the error that was made when producing these donuts. So we're going on to the characteristics of batch production. The workforce is usually very skilled, not as skilled as the job production though, but they're usually highly skilled persons. It is appropriate for repeated customer orders. So unlike the job production where it is that you probably gonna get a get a customized order, this is where persons are going to be like, yeah, I want another set of vanilla donuts, another set of cheesecake donuts, another set of chocolate donuts. Um, so it's used for repeated customer orders. Equipment cost is lower as one piece of equipment is used to produce a number of products. So unlike the job production, the one piece of equipment is producing lots and lots and lots of products. The products are usually standardized, and that means that there are other substitutes. So you could go get donuts from someplace else. You could get some another type of medicine somewhere else. Another phone. You could get a phone somewhere else. You don't have to get a phone from Samsung. There are other substitutes. And the machines are organized and grouped based on what they do. So you would have the deep fryers, and then you would have the pasters, like pasting the frosting at the top, and then you have the boxing of the or the packaging of the items. So they're really characterized based on what they do. So we're going to talk about the advantages of batch production, and compared to job production, less machinery is required, obviously. Quality control can be done as the products pass through each process. So quality control is a concept that we will um, encounter soon in another topic, and it's basically when quality is added into the product at each stage of production. Unlike quality assurance, where the quality is built in to the product. So then we have that labor costs are as high because the workers are less skilled. The firm can respond quickly to orders as it takes less time to produce the product, and they're producing way more than the job production, and they're lower per unit costs due to large scale production. All right, so any questions? I guess not. Okay, so we're moving on with the disadvantages of
Oh,
oh, yeah.
I said I understood.
Okay, cool, cool. We're talking about the disadvantages. The cash can get tied up in the work in progress, and we understand that the work in progress is like the throughput. Remember, we discussed the throughput. This is the process of making the product. So maybe you may have a whole set of donuts that are not frosted as yet, and that can be if they were finished, they'll be you will be getting money for them because they'll be available for sale, as you can say in accounts. But yes, the cash can get tied up in the work in progress, and that's not necessarily a good thing because that can distort the liquidity of the business. We can say also that the productivity is not optimized because of downtime of machinery and equipment as the firm switches between the batches. So, and then later on, we will encounter something called lean production where we do not waste time, materials, none of that. So with this particular type of production, the time between, probably moving the the donuts that were finished deep fried to the frosting section, that is downtime. That is time in between there that is being wasted. We do not want any of that. We want optimal productivity. it can lower the levels of employee motivation because they may not, it's not like they're, you know, for example, like in the job production, they're not, hands-on with the product. They're probably just maybe operating the machines. Um, Probably every single day, just frosting the donuts, and that can become repetitive and boring, and so they can lose motivation. And if only a small batch is produced, so let's say people only want 50 donuts today, and you usually produce, you know, 200, your unit cost will rise. So we're moving on to flow production. And this is where identical standardized items, just before we move on, you understand everything about batch production, right?
I mean, if the employees are paid well, I mean, well, that could be the best motivation. I was just
That, but
thinking that when you were saying that.
yeah, but in lower six and in fifth form, we would have learned that they are, but in lower six unit one, we will have learned that there are different types of motivation, and money is not necessarily the only way, or sometimes it's not even a way that a person's are motivated. People are motivated through, according to Maslow's theory, you know the basic needs must be satisfied. Then you have things like self-actualization, um you know like when you're being recognized for things that you're doing. And it's not only money. It's not only money that motivates us. It is actually enjoying our jobs and the benefits of our job, and seeing that we can improve daily. But if you're just pasting frosting on a donut every day, you know that can get boring. It doesn't matter how, sometimes it doesn't matter how much you're being paid.
So does so doesn't that I could understand the donuts, but doesn't it also depend on the job? Because some people bake for a living. They're bakers and they love
Yeah.
what they do. Yes, the menu will change because it's hardly ever, even at Chefette, we see the different specials that come on every like 2 months or so.
Yeah.
So for yeah, you do like I think about a cook. There people love to cook. I love to
Hmm.
cook. And I used to sometimes cook the same thing. But I guess I'm not doing it day in and day out.
Yeah.
But
And for
so
long
I
periods
guess
of
it
time as
depends.
well.
And for long periods of time. So I guess it depends. In my head I'm thinking it depends on the job. Like sometimes you're doing the same thing day in and day out, but you're doing a diverse amount of the same thing, if that makes any sense. Like every day, even though you're doing the same thing, it's not the same thing. Like I don't know how to
Oh,
explain it. Like the
I
same
well,
job,
in
but you're not
in
doing it.
in unit one B, you would have learned about I think job rotation, and it's basically where you get to, instead of pasting the these donuts today, you are packaging them another day, or packaging them another week. It's not that you're doing the same thing over and over, and that can lead, or that can increase motivation. But if you're just doing the same thing over and over and over and over, even if you love it, and Nicole, you will hear that your utils will eventually decrease because you're using it, or I mean not using it, doing it over. Or let's say you love pasta. But if you eat pasta every single day, the same pasta every single day, every
Yeah, you'll get
single,
sick of it.
you'll get sick of it. Your details will decrease. And that's the same, I guess you could play that same concept or principle here. If you're doing the same thing, even if you love it every single day, you're gonna get tired of it. You're
So
going to get.
you would say that you would say with the previous jobs we discussed, like the designer clothing, because every single dress you make is never the same because it's so
Yeah.
custom.
Mm-hmm.
It's better. All right, I understand.
Yeah, is you are not doing the same thing every day. You are maybe challenged, you're maybe doing something that you actually, a particular design that you actually love to do, or working with material that you actually love to do, but it's not that you're seeing that every single day for an extended amount of time. And that's different when it comes to batch production, where you are basically doing the same thing every single day.
Thank thank you, Miss Donicia.
No problem. So we're talking about the next production method, and this is flow production, and this is where identical standardized items are produced on an assembly line. assembly line. It is most suitable where demand is extremely high and it requires that the work process is organized into sequential steps so that each item passes through each stage before moving on to the next stage. So it's continuous production. It's not like, it's like an assembly line. So you will have like, I don't know, snacks. You put the snacks well, that's not a good example, but they have cars, things like cars and bicycle. You don't have to take them off of one machine and put them onto the next. It just moves on to next stage. So as you can see that here, a car assembly plant or a bicycle assembly plant. Um, as you will see here, know that there are three types of flow production. There is mass production. Let me just make sure that my thing is recording. Okay, yes, it is. There is mass production. And mass production, you're producing identical products on a large scale, and the goods must be produced quickly to meet high demands and sustain demands. So these are things like your fridges and your ovens and your microwaves. This is mass production. And then there's flow production, and the product goes through a continuous series of processes. There are no breaks until the product is finished. So that's things like cement, steel, sugar, fertilizers, etc. And then the process manufacturing, process production, it is a production method that creates goods by combining supplies, ingredients, or raw materials using a formula or a recipe. And the product goes through different processes. So we would have done this if you did accounts unit two, you would know about process costing. And this is basically you're converting raw materials to finished goods and they go through a process. So you will see is mostly associated with things like oil and gasoline and chemicals and plastics that have to go through a process from for example paper. You have to get this thing over the tree, then you probably have to do some chemical something, then it turns into paper. Simple is that's process production. So the characteristics of flow production on a whole is that they use semi-skilled and unskilled workers because there's not much that they have to do. The product price is lower due to mass production because this type of production they produce large amounts. There is economies of scale. And we know that economies of scale is when you're able to there are different types of economy of scale, but you're basically your per unit cost is lowering, and as a result, you can um, buy in bulk and stuff like that, so that you can keep your costs low and you can maximize profit. Um, a lot of raw materials and components are used. The products are definitely standardized, and the setup cost is very expensive because if you're in a factory and you have to have an assembly line or anything like that, that equipment is going to be very, very expensive. So we're going to go through the advantages quickly. We understand that the per unit cost will be lower because you are producing so much from like one set of equipment or a couple sets of equipment, but you're producing so much that you can cover that cost and even more. And then large amount of the goods can be produced very quickly, so you're able to meet the demand or the growing demands of the market. And the last type of we're going to talk about disadvantages quickly. The setup costs are high because you have to get all of those machines and stuff like that in order to produce on this large scale. And if something goes wrong with the machinery or equipment, God forbid, the entire assembly line can be halted. Like it could offset everything. The quantity is sometimes sacrificed for quality. You're not necessarily building quality into the product. You just want to make sure that you get this amount you want to suffice a particular quarter. Just want to get 2,000 cars or 2,000 bicycles by the end of today. And it's usually inflexible due to, as it is difficult to alter the production process if consumers' taste changes. So, you can't get custom made bicycles, you can't get custom made cars, nothing like that. You have to take what you get, take what you get, as you would say here in Barbados. When it
Unless you're
comes,
rich, 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 rich.
yeah, unless you're willing to pay them lots and lots and lots and lots of money, but you have to you gotta take what you get. That's it. So then the last type of production, or last method of production, is cellular production. And this factory is basically divided into cells that will carry out specific tasks on the product. So once the task is completed, the product will move on to the next cell. And it promotes teamwork as each member is responsible for maintaining quality and design of the product. So, for example, in a clothing manufacturing um, business or firm, one cell may be responsible for sewing on the sleeves, while the other is responsible for sewing on the collar, and the next one is um, responsible for sewing on the buttons. So in each cell, there is a different procedure that is going on, but they all contribute to the final product. And the advantages are there is quality control because each cell has to make sure that the quality is maintained, and we understand that with quality control, the quality is built into the product at each stage. Well, with quality assurance, um, you're just making sure that quality you're just making sure that quality is there from the start. Is not like each stage you can check to see if quality is built in. You can make sure that your laborers or your workers are highly skilled. You have the best machinery, etc., etc. It's not like you checking every step. You have to make sure it. I mean, another advantage is that there is increased motivation because of teamwork. Having your employees or your co-workers there next to you, and it's just that fun, warm feeling. And so, motivation, you're motivated. You want to make sure that your partner gets the shirts with the color so that they can move on, putting on the buttons, and it just motivates um the employees. The skills of employees improve because they're doing the same thing over and over. So I guess that's an advantage of doing something over and over. You become very skilled in doing what you do. The firm could possibly see a reduction in your working process, work in progress, and there is less for space used than in an assembly line because there are different cells in the production area. The disadvantages are that the level of output may be less than the production costs, because you're waiting on the previous person to finish whatever it is that they're doing so that you can continue, and the high capital and equipment costs, along with demotivation because you're doing the same thing every day. So this can have a disadvantage as well. So I hope that everything was clear. I hope that you enjoyed the class, and I hope that um, it was very comprehensive and that you learned a lot about the nature of production, the what is production, the production process, and the production methods.
One question.
Yeah.
So the businesses that do cellular production and the businesses that do job the job one, would those two businesses make more money? Or because the balance in terms of like trying to formulate my question properly. The job based production is the
Mm-hmm.
one that where you selling custom clothes. That was the example you gave. You're selling custom clothing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's never it have more motivation. You got to be creative, stuff like that. This one, the seller one, seems to be more quality control and more of a balance of quality and quantity. So I'm just asking if those two types of production are the best types in terms of like profit or
What we will go on to next um, would would be the factors that influence the methods used. But it all depends on various factors. Like I said, the nature of the good. And in terms of profit, it honestly depends on your cost of production. If you have a very high cost of production and you are barely making any sales, you will not make more money than the person that is using flow production per se. It all boils down to your cost of production and how you strategically plan out and stuff like that to make money. Is not necessarily about the type of production. It all depends on the type of good that you're producing, the stage in the product life cycle, because you may be at a peak where you have to do like flow production because lots of people are demanding your product, and you cannot possibly, for example, with the case of you, sit down and make 2,000 crochet tops in a day. You may have to actually invest in some equipment where you can mass produce them. So it all depends. It depends on many different things. It is not that one will necessarily make more money than the next.
All right, no problem.
Yeah. So that's it. Thank you for coming, and we will see you next Tuesday. And we will start off with um, the factors that influence the type of production method used.